Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Table Talks. I'm your host, Mantra Lotus.
And I'm Tigra with Tiggy Pink Productions.
Right, and we are the goddesses of Tuesday Table Talks. Today's guest is Roland Sneed Jr. He is an 8th grade science teacher, and he's speaking with us on the challenges of education today. So I hope you guys are excited about this conversation and ready to take part.
Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Roland, for being here. We're so glad you're here.
Tell us about yourself.
See, well, like you said, my name is Roland Sneed. I was born in California. I moved to the St. Louis area when I was like 9 years old. I've had my experience in education kind of from Ferguson Middle School to Washington, D.C., working with the Boys and Girls Clubs, and now I'm a science teacher in St. Louis Public Schools.
Okay, and it's 8th grade, is it?
8th grade, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, tell us about the climate in the schools these days. Like, what is it like? What challenges are teachers facing in this day and age?
Well, most of it right now for myself is with like behavior. So I should be teaching lesson plans, but I noticed that I'm doing more counseling and more social work, just dealing with behavior and trying to teach etiquette in terms of like today, for instance, like I just got off work 30 minutes ago. So I got students standing on tables, fighting in the hallway, that sort of stuff. So you can't really get into in-depth science and stuff that they need to know because of that, and I'll say, just to be real candid, like inside the public school system, it seems to me that, and maybe not just the public school system, it might just be education in general, it seems like it's intentional. It seems like systematic. Like they want them to fail, like they want to impede on the knowledge that they're getting, and it seems deeply rooted. I can say that, like, in a lot of ways, maybe you'll ask the question, so I won't have to be too long-winded, but yeah, in a lot of ways, it seems planned. I could just say based off of the curriculum, for one. The curriculum it's not, you start with learning everything outside of yourself when you should start with learning about yourself first. So it could be more centered, so that you won't really, find yourself knowing about everything else except yourself. So you have all these different concepts. You'll know how to plant trees, but you won't know how to really plant seeds inside of yourself so that they can flourish and grow later on in life in terms of knowledge and wisdom and stuff like that. Yeah.
So back to the first thing you mentioned with the behavior. So, of course, it's no longer allowed this day, but I remember when my mom was a teacher back in, the 80s, 90s, you had the paddle, you had the ruler, So what can teachers do when these kids are kind of, they want to fight you and put your hands on you? What do you do in these situations?
Well, you always kind of, just to take the high road, like you always have to remember to stay grounded, stay poised, so that because they're learning from you. They're learning how you respond. So they're going to respond like you, even though they won't admit, all of them that you're their role model. They're watching you. And, you got these mirror neurons going on, and they're going to copy off of you. They're going to emulate everything that you do, especially if you are relatable in any type of way to any of the students. So one thing, you have to make sure that you don't respond in a way that you wouldn't want them to respond. And I have to constantly teach myself that. Again, I'm a flawed human being as well, constantly working on myself. And so I have to just remember that. I always tell them, I give them love. I make sure, because you'll get it back in that way. But one of the things to do is really have that secondary education. I think it was Carter G. Woodson who spoke about like having a secondary education. You learn in school, then you have to go home and really learn what you should learn.
That's right.
Yes.
So in regards to your support system, what sort of resources? So if the children, are acting up, and it's behavioral issues, are there, therapists, or are they just, it's not, enough? Are they overworked, or how does that go? What sort of, and also the support system that you have versus the support system that you need.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to know more about
Inside the school.
inside the
Oh.
school. So if the children are, if they're having their behavioral issues,
Mm-hmm.
if they're on the tables and,
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to teach, what sort of methods can you use to settle them down or get them settled down? And is therapy readily available for them? And,
Yeah.
how can that be accessed?
Well, so yeah, within the school we have counselors, we have social workers. The kids have a IEP, so I think it's like I forgot what it stands for right now, but so they might have a social worker, somebody come outside of the school if they come into the school with issues already or different behavioral problems. They'll have somebody working with them specifically for them. And we have a dean, we have the principal. And so if I put a student out the class, which happens every single day, after many chances, sometimes they're roaming in the hallway, because we have behavioral issues throughout the whole entire school, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, or they might be in a meeting or something like that. So sometimes I get support, but I feel like I might be leaning on them so much that they end up having 6 of my children from one period. So then they're like, yo, I got other stuff I have to do as well. So they'll say, just write them up. But it gets to the point where you don't want to write them up and then they get put out because I'm working at an alternative school. So they're already put out and they only have opportunity to come to the school that I work at on the north side. It's open enrollment. So they can come any point during the year. Some of the things that I personally do outside of the school, though, so I try to simulate the things that they like, and through that simulation, it'll be like it's almost like escape rooms. But the escape rooms again are centered around things that are within their culture and the things that they like to do.
They can relate to.
Things that they can relate to. So it might be an escape room where it's focused on behavior. So I'll set up a situation a scenario where somebody might be fake blood on the shirt, and they're all brought into the room. One, they're blindfolded, right? So you have to sort of impair them. They don't have all their faculties. So that really makes them pay attention more. So they get into the room, they have a time, they have to figure out who did it and what's the best way to react, best way to solve the issue that they're having. And when I first started it, I was like, man, I'm wondering if it's corny, but you have to have models. Like models help you understand like the forecast of what's going on, just really check the temperature in society in general within our young population. So I wasn't sure. I was a little reluctant because I had worked on it so long on paper. Until you actually see it play out, you'll see the impact after that. So you'll know how to tweak it or change it or keep, something the same. So that's the only thing I could say that's really helped, like the type of impact that I've seen. Like some of the kids are crying after, because that's just one, and then they go from that one and they're blindfolded and they go to another room where it's more so health and wellness. So they'll get into this room and maybe the focus is they solve some sort of riddle or something like that, and they have to do 1,000 push-ups as a group. And many of them are like, well, we can't do that, but this just teaches like teamwork. And so usually what happens is there's a student in there or just a kid in there who doesn't do push-ups, but he can do 6 or 7. And that's usually the one who does the last 6 or 7 that the group needs. And so the camaraderie that happens with that, like how they cheer that kid on, what I'm saying? It really all comes together really well.
So is this something you're doing after school?
So I'm not actively doing it right now because so much of my time is spent like as a wrestling coach on Mondays and Thursdays, and then also helping with the basketball team at my school when I can, and just teaching,
But if you were doing it, it would be like a field trip or something.
Yeah. It would be after school. Yeah, it's sort of like it's a rite of passage. Sometimes I label it that. Sometimes I'll just have it depending on the capacity in which I'm doing it. Like if I'm doing it at a school or if I'm doing it after school when I have like more freedom and I can sort of just kind of have whatever, and it doesn't have to be designed around like whatever we're doing at the school, then yeah, I kind of do it like
And when
that.
you do things like this for the children, I'm assuming this is out of pocket. Or-
Sometimes. So if I have an opportunity within the school, then yeah. But other than that, it's out of pocket. Yeah, yeah. But it's so many different ways to shape it. So you can use certain communities and get the community involved. Sort of how you'll read about a rite of passage in Africa, where they'll have certain age group of kids going to a jungle, but it's all being watched by older adults, and it's been vetted, and that nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of contained, but they don't know that. So they're worried about all of the different elements, and is this going to happen? Is this animal going to come or something like that? And they have to stay all night. Meanwhile, you're shaping the entire thing that's going on. So that one I haven't done, but that was something that I wrote down where I would like to work within the community, let everybody in the community know, and have
the resources.
the resources
Yeah,
that
the
I need.
support.
Mhm.
That's what it seems.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it seems that's lacking. And I know we do have a couple rites of passage programs here in St. Louis, so maybe that's something that after the show, we can see what we can do to try to get you that sort of support from them, from Mills, which is definitely needed.
Yeah.
And you seem like you're worn thin, with everything it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
many hats, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so we're talking about the behavior, and so I know it's different nowadays. I know these kids have very little to no fear. Like back in the day, we wouldn't have dreamed of doing
Talking
these things,
back, nothing.
right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't
Either-
happen.
right? So even if we didn't fear corporal punishment, we feared somebody telling our moms or
Right.
our dads or somebody, or even suspension or getting put out.
Uh-huh.
But they don't have that fear. They a fear of
Yeah,
punishment.
no.
So
I think some of that comes from, I mean, because you are.
No.
Okay. I think a lot of that comes from, again, when I say systemic, I mean not only within education, but through just how society is structured. So the type of music that's pushed out, right? All of those vibratory frequencies affect us. Like it's a scientific fact, that sounds affect your cerebral spinal fluid, right? And then all of that and how it affects you, your mood, the things that you're eating, all of these different things, are really important. So like I noticed that the things that they're listening to and the things that they're watching, because again, they're mimicking everything because they don't know anything. They don't know that, we just human nature to sort of emulate or copy off of something, and especially when you're young through certain ages. And that's what they do. And they don't know that they're doing it. So most of them are emulating or mimicking, just gang activity, talking about just being opt out in terms of everybody's my opposition. Like we don't like them, or, or if you don't, then, oh, you're friendly. So it's the things that are promoted today through all of the social media, that's just the music and the visuals. So it's auditory and visual mostly, that our youth are being raised by, because a lot of our families are broken. The father isn't in the house or around, or the mother really isn't able to be involved. And so you have young rappers raising them. So they'll watch YouTube videos, TikTok videos, and they begin to emulate that. Everything is a joke, So it's definitely my purpose. And so I try to find a way to kind of like mitigate this, through growing up the way I grew up. I had to pull myself out of situations like when I was young because my father wasn't around. So that's why I really feel so, dedicated to, this mission, this purpose, and working with the youth.
And reprogramming as much as you can. So what you said, and I thought about it. I don't know if you're able, and that'll probably go into the next line of discussion of how much control it is that you have over the classroom. Because could you put in, higher frequency music or, just low, vibrational music, just calming music or something during your class, if that, to have that background information I noticed with children, and I used to homeschool, a lot of times it's shocking them into things that are so different from what they're used to.
Yeah.
And they're automatically going to try to go against it.
Yeah.
And, but it's so different that you find that gradually they cling to it because it's different from their lifestyle and different from experiences that they've previously had. So
I agree. So a lot of times, I'm gonna say a lot of times, but for a few weeks I played like Coltrane, and I just have it playing in the background, and they'd be like, "What is this elevator music?"
Right.
And then, but one time a student said, "Can you put on some writing music?" So he just automatically he just saw it as writing music, and so these are a few of my favorite things. That song is like 13 minutes long. Coltrane, different people, Monk, who else? List goes on. Like I usually use 3 different jazz musicians, like old school stuff that I would play, something without words.
Yes, and all instrumental. Right?
Yep, all instrumental. And also, so once I use that, for some reason I did stop. It's just behavior is like sometimes they're so loud they can't even hear that. So that's why I think I stopped that for a second. Then I started to do a different type of like coding and decoding where I would play their music. And then I would say, okay, let's look at this from an analytical standpoint and let's play the music. And I would pause it every 10 seconds. I was like, and I would ask questions. I was like, look at that. Like, doesn't this thing extremely, stupid? Like for somebody to be 17 years old with weapons in a video that your friend shot and then you post it on YouTube, do you not know who's watching? Do you not know everybody can see this? Then you post it on your Instagram. So if you do ever get in trouble, or somebody gets in trouble, it's automatic. So,
and back to what you said earlier about it being systematic, I think that too is like for the children to understand that, maybe this is put into place for a reason, so you won't grow up, so you won't graduate. Yeah. So, maybe this is by design, and it's a sad state, but for our children to understand that, I mean, come on, if we can't see the positive images that are pushed, when we seeing, 15-year-olds who are graduating college, but we can see all the high-powered rifles and, on any social media, outlet, it's automatic, so.
I think one of the biggest, I guess, blocks that teachers face that I've heard is not having that parent as
that part. Yeah.
Yes, that connection. So if they can go home and the parents can correct or help enforce what's being taught, and they're not getting that a lot. So it's just all they're getting as far as learning and education is what's at school, and it's not supposed to be that way.
Yeah. So you see a big regression a lot of times during their breaks, during like a spring break or summer break, just looking at the data or something like that. But no, the parents, like that is huge. I'm glad you brought that up. I remember saying, okay, I want to speak to a few students' parents. And the parents got there. And I was like, no, I don't even want to speak to the parents anymore. Like, wait a minute. What?
They take the side of the student or it's just that they need education themselves.
They need education themselves. They're most of the time, so they might come in high, you know what I mean?
Oh,
and so it's hard for me to have a serious conversation with them because now I know that you are getting high and you're doing it in front of your kids, and so now I see, and then you can notice that whatever student it is a bit embarrassed. So they see that, oh dang, you high right now. Because I remember that growing up, having my father come around or something like that, and he might be drunk or something. He was in Vietnam and he was fighting through a lot of different things. He passed away. Exactly. And he would share with me like all the things he went through, and this friend is dead and this friend is just having pictures, and he was trying to fight it because when he went, just be real, like open, like he ended up getting on heroin in Vietnam.
A lot of them did. A lot of my brothers
and did. He was trying to get off, and I believe he tried to use drinking or something to sort of, most people turn from one thing to another. And it wasn't until I got older till I found out exactly what it was. But when I look back on it, I think maybe I knew, but I didn't want to believe that that's what it was, and just say, okay, I was just drinking. But sometimes he would be, and I would be embarrassed. So I know that students, they are facing the same thing. Most of the parents that I met all came in, none of them were sober. None of them, not one of them.
And that definitely attributes to behavioral issues.
Or they're mad because you called them, what am I up here for?
Yeah, that happens. And for instance, I'm like, hey, your daughter's eating hot fries the whole time in my classroom. One, I know this is definitely affecting her behavior. I'm not even gonna try to break it down chemically to you, but just know that eating hot fries, there is no hot fry tree. And she's not, not growing this. And so, this super hot food, like, that type of fake spice and stuff like that in the morning with 110%, sugar.
MSG, chemicals, and it causes mental imbalance. Oh my. Yeah.
So that's their breakfast. And they're complaining about the lunch, but I'm like, look what you're eating is Takis and hot Funyuns. Everything is like extremely hot, and it's chips, it's fake food. And so I noticed that is a problem with their behavior. But if I bring that to somebody at the educational level where I'm working, whatever school it is, if it was in place before I was there, I get a whole lot of pushback. I get I definitely get that.
So do you think that it's just pretty much we just, getting the kids through and passing them on to the next grade and, and just trying to get done with
it? A whole other can of worms.
Okay. So, oh man, let me see. Not open. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. So this is how I know for a fact that they are doing that because one, you don't want to fail this. You don't want to fail them because then it'll look like you're not doing your job on some level, something you're missing. We give you all this money, but all of these resources, but you're still not able to be successful. So maybe we need to get a new principal or a new teacher in this classroom or something like that. Most times it's not the teachers, but on the higher administrative level, you'll see a whole lot of people just in and out, So, I've seen grades being done like this, like A, D, I don't like you, F, B, F, D. Who is that? I don't know. C.
Wow.
I've seen grades being done like that, not only at the school I'm at now, but even at my son's school. And I had to go up there and let him know I'm an educator as well. This is all the way GSA. It's on the south side. I'm like, hey, these grades aren't accurate. We stay up with my son all night to make sure that anything he's missing, we fix it. And teachers, they don't care until you go in there and let them know, like, hey, I know the secret. I know it's been, show me how my son earned his grade. Oh, you see, it's not right now. You're going to change it? Okay, thank you. Right. That just happened not even a week ago.
Wow.
So if parents aren't challenging it, then these kids are getting.
Oh, yeah. If you ask some teacher to produce some type of paperwork showing how your child earned a grade, I promise you 8, maybe 9 times out of 10 haven't been at every single school, but I'm letting you know, they're making this stuff up.
So are we still, not we, I've never been a teacher, but I mean, are there still even lesson plans in place? Or what are they pretending to?
There's lesson plans, but because of the behavior, you can't get into the lesson plans. And then the current state that we're in education, with the way the teachers are getting paid since 1993 until now. So it's 20 years. Teachers have received maybe 3% or 4%. I could be wrong, but it's extremely low. If you look at every different sector of, within just work and careers, everybody else received at least 40%. Teachers were getting paid around $1,300 in 1993, and now they're maybe getting the average is $13. It would say $13.50. Now it's $13.60.
I'm sorry. What is that a week? I mean,
so every 2 weeks. Oh. Yep, every 2 weeks.
How are you supposed to survive and pay your loans back?
So that's why I say it's systemic and it's intentional, because they don't want to hire the best educators. Right. So they now, if you go say to a temp agency, I don't know if everybody has temp agencies in their state, but you go to a temp agency, you're looking for a job in St. Louis, you say, okay, can I work at this Snooks or this Taco Bell? They might say, hey, do you want to be the math teacher?
Wow.
They're hiring from temp agencies. So it's horrible.
So instead of increasing to
Yep.
give teachers what they deserve, they just want to have less qualified.
Less qualified teachers, pay less money, and yeah, as long as because the prison industry is
Speak on it now.
yeah is very beneficial to a lot of people, and a lot of people are betting on us to fail, and also putting little bumps in the road so that we do fail. And these people have a lot of resources, so when they do that, on such a high level, you'll begin to they'll be successful because they're invested in the prison industry, invested in everything else, like halfway houses and all of that. If you have less of us going to prison and you have more success, then they don't get paid.
So they said the pipeline. I remember there was a pipeline. Was
the
it from
prison
the
pipeline,
Yeah, the prison
uh-huh.
pipeline.
Yeah, and I'm just speaking just empirically. I haven't even watched anything or read anything about it, but I would hear something and I would see it. I know, oh, that's what that excerpt was about that I heard, or I might just hear something and I'll be like, oh, that's the prison industrial, prison pipeline, that's what they're speaking about. And so I'll say, they're looking at your test scores. And if you guys, I got 8th graders, you guys are reading at a 3rd grade reading level, some 2nd grade. Some of them I don't even know because they're scared to read. And the holes of the paper are facing to the right instead of the left.
Wow.
You gave it to me like that. Like you don't know to pick it up, and you can't. Everything that they're doing is at a very like 2nd or 3rd grade level. And I let them know they're looking at your reading scores, and based off only your reading scores, they know who's going to prison. They can have a good estimate about who's going to prison based off of your reading scores. It used to be, I used to think it was the test scores, but I know for sure because I just had to write a paper on it. I'm a full-time student too, and I noticed that it's 3rd grade and 4th grade reading scores that they look at, because based off of after the pandemic, all test scores fell in every single state against with every demographic. And so reading was the one that didn't fall as much because you have to read, just if you're just out and about. But math scores, it fell extremely low. So they use that to base and get a good projection of who's going to prison, how many prisons they need to build, and how many schools they need to close. Yeah,
that's a whole nother, like it's an industry almost.
Yeah,
money making industry.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
So these tests, like these MAP tests, they used to call them, and all these tests.
They still do.
They still do.
Yeah.
Now, didn't they used to kind of like use that to measure the school to see if it would stay accredited? I don't remember how it worked.
Accreditation.
Yeah. So
and the funding that they needed.
So why aren't they saying, well, hey, we want our kids to be smart so we can pass these tests so it can benefit us? What do you see going on there?
I would say that you can always sort of skew data. You can help in ways that you're not supposed to, or just make numbers look differently when it's just on paper until you actually come in. Let me see this child who's exceptional right now. Like, let me see them actually do it. Then you'll notice, like, oh no, like, yeah. So however they need to play with certain things, they'll do it. And then if you come into the school and you want to do right and you want to make sure that they learn, they kind of want to get you out of that school. Right. And so it's people that look just like us. It's, you know what I mean? It's not a race thing. It's people who have the same intentions. Like, so we're all, if you're in a school, it's like an organism, right? We're all working together, and say it's like we're playing in a symphony, but you're playing off key, but we're playing a song, but it's just an unrighteous song, right? And you want to come in here and play on key, you making us look bad, or just, it's just what you're doing. The kids might come in and be like, man, you the only one teaching, man. What are you doing? I'm about to leave, walk out or something like that. Or like, can you just cut on a movie? Can you cut the lights off? I'm like, is this what's going on in the other classrooms? So they don't like you because you always give work. But I'm like, yo, this is education. This is school.
Right.
And then they'll tell me something like, you don't need to have you don't need to go to school to be smart. And I'll be like, you don't need to be in the streets to be hard. Like, like I've done both. Like I've been your age and older, and I'm giving you a map. You know what I mean? This is a cheat code. Like you can listen or figure out the hard way.
Right.
So I know you can't really save everybody. I try not to be that altruistic, but for some reason, I'm just going to continue to do what I do and try. And I know that as long as I'm on that path, I'll be able to reach all of the ones that I need to reach.
So as an educator, you're facing no good pay,
Mhm.
behavior from the kids, pushback, stress from your work environment.
Mhm.
How do you stay mentally sane? What do you do for you as an educator?
So sometimes, I run. I like to run. I
No, you say you do wrestling. Is that like a
wrestling. It's a release, but I also wanted to see if I could bring wrestling to the schools that I'm at. So, because I think it would be a release for the students.
Kids,
yeah. So they're fake fighting and they don't know how to fight, and it's obvious.
Mm.
But if you knew how to fight, you wouldn't fake fight because you
Right.
would be more confident, not trying to see if you can fight or if you know how to defend yourself through playing with it in the hallway and in the classroom so much. Because you can tell that most of the time when you know how to defend yourself, you're confident and you don't need to have that type of ego. You don't need to have that type of bravado where you just kind of like, saying crazy stuff to people. Like most people can fight or defend themselves. They're not doing that. They're kind of quiet for the most part. So yeah, wrestling, I would say just running, trying to eat, as best as I can. I don't eat meat. So maybe that helps, but sometimes it's still stressful.
Yeah,
Like when I'm leaving school right now, it takes a while. Like right now, my head hurts from yelling all day long, and all the teachers really feel like that, So it's just the whole setup of just being in an alternative school. For one, is extremely difficult. Even if when I wasn't in an alternative school, it was still difficult, but I wanted to work with this group because I knew they were going to high school, and I knew the way I love them. They probably wouldn't. They're not getting it from home, and they probably aren't getting it from the teachers. I can tell. They care, but it's different levels and degrees of care, and I care from a different place. Like it's my purpose. So it's not the pay that I do it for, even though that will increase gradually. Like when I'm finally done with a doctoral program, and hopefully in like 4 years. But I know that this is just my purpose, and it's what I like to call like a greater hunger rather than like a lesser hunger. Like a lesser hunger would be the carnal, temporal, temporary feelings, and then the greater hunger would be more like you have to feed on wisdom and give power and just nurture to somebody else, because that's sustainable. That's something that is, when you leave, somebody will still be benefiting from it. So yeah, I just like to focus on those greater hungers.
Are there resources for teachers? I know we have the counselors and the IEPs for the children. Anything for the teachers in place?
They have if you need any type of counseling or stress. I remember reading a few emails and stuff like that, but I'm not sure how, like I feel like I do that through reading. Like that's another outlet for me. Like when I read about other things that other people have been through, trying to be successful, trying to help and give their all, and just in different areas of life, that really that's something that motivates me. Me keep wanting to go and do what I do. And every day isn't a failure, And really, I have a good, they'll say like, man, you manage your classroom extremely well. You're not in here, they're not acting like this. But okay isn't good enough for me, So they'll walk past my class and like, oh my God, like, how did you do this? Like, what are you doing? But it's not good enough because they're not getting the information. They're not retaining the information. It's just they're sitting here quiet.
Yeah.
And I'm teaching and I'll ask like just to check for understanding and, oh, I don't know what you said, or something like that. So that's not good enough for me. So that's why getting them out in nature, having them move around, having them be in the elements, having those rite of passage programs where they can learn the skills, but more so moving, which is how Montessori schools sort of came about. Not saying it's done right today, but that's the whole idea. Just
Yes.
have somebody moving because you learn not from being told or just being like lectured, but you learn from actual experience. Yeah.
So I know we have public schools, we have magnets, we have alternative, we have charters. So
Private.
we're in private. So alternative is
Oh, so this is a public school. Alternative school is like if you this is your alternate school because you can't make it at a public school. Alternate more so you have behavioral issues.
Okay.
You have ADHD. You have anger issues, and you got put out of the other schools. It's not because your grades. It's just because you're bad.
so whereas in the back in the day they would have. I mean, you would have a regular school, but then you have like a building for ADHD, ADD. So now they just have a whole school with behavioral.
Oh yeah.
And they thought that was a good idea. I mean, no, like seriously.
No, yeah.
So it's more issues on top of everything else that we've mentioned.
It's an alternative college prep school.
Mm.
So just wrap
It's
your head
interesting.
around it,
It's
right?
like a conundrum.
Yeah,
It
right.
makes
That's
sense.
exactly what it is. It's a paradox. As soon as you walk in
Yeah.
there, it's like, wait a minute. College prep looks great on paper, but nobody even wants
Yeah,
to go to college.
Yeah, it seems like it's missing links. Number one, there's no support system or resources in a sense for the parents.
Yeah.
It has to be a collective thing. Like meetings or workshops or or something like that, and not just doing counseling times or when grades come out, but it has to be a holistic approach to what's happening with these children. Like you mentioned earlier with diet and all of that and their experiences at home. It's
kind of like they're setting them up for failure.
Yeah. It's a setup for failure, and since it's systemic, I know it didn't start with these students.
Right.
It started maybe with their parents,
Right.
or really, of course, it started before that. We can get in depth, but especially with their parents, it's really in the music. I promise you. It seems like we talk about it, but when you hear some of them lyrics and you understand like the type of beats and what it does to your body and your organs, and you have something in church called an organ, and you have organs in your body, and those vibratory, like, so there was I guess you guys know about what is his name? I don't want to butcher his name, but he did a rice experiment.
Miyamoto. Yes, yeah.
I believe he's Japanese guy.
Mm-hmm. He's Japanese. Yes.
He just tested how water, so it's like a rice experiment. You boil two things of rice, play positive music to one, say positive words to one, negative words to the other one. The one you said negative words to, it had negative music playing. It rotted and it was like spoiled inside of a can after like 30 days. The other one with the positive music and the positive vibratory frequency, it stayed white. And so a lot of people tried it. I've done it with kids years ago. When I was managing the Boys and Girls Club, I did that just to show them like what you're listening to is affecting you. So it's the power of like water, the type of water, and the vibratory frequency that's like given to it. So that's why I just keep going back to the music, because that's what I noticed with our kids. Like when they're not listening, they have headphones in, and the stuff that's coming out their mouth, every word is about killing somebody who looks just like them.
Yeah.
Right, and killing somebody, their friend who got killed. It's just everything is death, and it's fed in a way because we like the sound, like the drums, the beat, the production behind it, and so you can just like some nursery rhymes, rockabye baby on a treetop. It's like. But then when you hear it, it's like, whoa,
that's not right.
Right.
Or Ring Around the Rosie, or like all of these things, like, and when you do the research on it, you're like, oh, this is bad, but it has a nice little, hypnotizing beat, And so that's what happens to our youth when they don't know who they are. Just going back to finding out who you are first and then building from that, so that you can just be upright and righteous and moving, just wise throughout navigating throughout society. Because again, it's set up for you to fail. So that's why when I do get a chance to do something in my classroom, it's not all the way done and it's set up like a scenario. It is for them to see the choices that they make, and for them to emulate what they would do in society, because they love the streets and it seems like prison, the idea of it so much because the way it's fed to them.
They're desensitized
until they get in it. It's like, whoa.
It's like,
I'm like, yo, it's just guys, like they're waiting for you. Like, if you don't, what are you gonna do? I don't know. You don't have a plan. Believe me, they have a plan for you. But that's not
like
enough.
You said, the music, the what sensationalizes, the violence, the fast cars, the women, and it's like, and I like, and I'm not gonna knock anybody getting their coins for real, but I like the young lady Glorilla, real catchy beats. But I don't care about my credit. I might be rich tomorrow, So you got kids listening to this, and they're like, well, forget the credit.
Right.
But that's just one small example, though. Is all I'm saying, and you hate to be that, I sound like my mama now.
Right.
But it's true.
It is
the
true.
Music and the lyrics, and it's just. They want to be rich. They want the gold chain, the ice,
the look of it.
The look of it,
right? Because a lot of it is not even real. That's the thing. A lot of it is not real.
Yeah.
It's all show.
Money. It's not real.
Right. It's all show.
Yep.
They're just putting on a show.
Yeah. And people are paying.
And the people that they putting the show on are the ones who's making the money.
Yeah.
Who got them putting on the show?
Yeah,
so they're not even making the money.
Yeah.
Real.
Well.
So what would help you? I mean, what do educators need to push forward to reach the kids or to teach the kids to change the system?
That's such a deep question, even though it seems simple. Just more people to be in education who really care. We have like union in St. Louis, but the teachers union or the educators union, it's just not helping. When you have to pay to be in the union, you're already in the union because your pay is not enough. Right. So now it's going to be even less because you want to voice your opinion about not being paid enough, which is silly. I would say just more people who care about children, knowing how to find a way to get inside of the schools, after school programs, more after school programs, focused on behavior and educating our students about who they really are. Right. That I think that foundational learning, like knowing who you are, will give you a map to make better choices as you get older. So a lot of stuff is taken out of the schools. So I feel like they need to teach astrology again. So I teach astrology in my science class. Nice. I teach astronomy and then astrology, and I teach them how they correlate. And so it's just not about the planets and their distance and how big they are, but what's your zodiac sign? What does it mean? Like what number? Like what day were you born on? Like numerology, all different sort of divination systems, because now that was done for thousands of years. It was only taken away again like in the 1800s. So that type of science, when the Roman Catholic Church took that out of the schools, it was because they didn't want you to know who you were. And so now when you put it back in place, you'll start to see kids, okay, what's your numbers? Like, what does that mean, right? What's your planet? What's your element? Like, what does that say about you? If you're a fire sign, a water sign, or earth sign, who are you compatible with? And so they like that when they might get into an argument or something like that. I say, okay, you are a fire sign, and they'll know off the bat. Like, and then another student will come and be like, oh, that's why. But I also let them know, like, all of these different 12 signs have to work with one another, and when we learn how to work together, all of those different diverse characteristics and skill sets working together, knowing that, okay, we don't get along, but we need to work together. And that's what happens in nature, So long as we emulate nature, we'll be okay. But if we're constantly in competition
Mhm.
rather than sort of cooperating or trying to work together, which is working against nature. Because in evolution, you had a single cell for billions of years, single cell organisms, and then they finally decided to get together. And when they got together, we were able to do more complex things and become human beings. And this is just based off of science and evolution.
Beautiful.
But when you don't, again, you work alone and you're in competition, and then everything is going to fail. It doesn't work like that. If your feet are not working with your hands and your head is not working with your heart, you're just not going to be successful in life.
So it seems like with the astrology part of it.
Mhm.
So I don't really know a whole lot about it, but I know like you can have your 12th is in like something,
Uh-huh.
but with the houses.
Uh-huh.
So my understanding is like when you delve down deep into that,
Yeah.
it kind of tell you like what you would be good at as
Yeah.
far as occupation too.
It's
So
so
it seems
yeah.
like this would be really good to have 8th grade up
Mhm.
into high school before they go to
Right.
college
Exactly.
or whatever they decide to do
Yeah,
with life.
yeah, and you're exactly right. So I bring resources there, like I even have them in my bag, but it's a book on birthdays, and it has every single
I
birthday in the
love
book.
it.
And so they read and they find their birthday, and they're like, "Oh my!" As soon as they get in the first paragraph, they all react. Man, this is, bro, what? Like, and so that's how I get them open to thinking about it. And then I draw. I love astrology, so I'll tell them like, if you know what time you're born, I'll print out your natal chart and I'll just give you a reading. And so just to let them know, it's a certain rapper. It was a song that's really popular. He speaks like he says, "I got my reading and my regions now. I'm headed out the region." So I said, "Do you guys know what a reading is?" And so I'm just relating it back to him. It was a rapper, Future. He calls himself Pluto, but he is a Scorpio, and that's his planet.
Wow.
So I'll just show him like, it's a saying that goes like billionaires use astrology and this type of like science, you know, all billionaires, because they want every single thing that could give them the upper hand in whatever it is that they're doing. They're not turned off by it. If it makes sense, it's not your horoscope where you're just reading, oh, today you're upset. And so they like to desensitize people and sort of show you that and think that that's what astrology is. And that's definitely not. Again, like if you are a Pisces, you probably have a lot of dreams, more than anybody else. Your planet is Neptune. What does Neptune mean? And then you could just see if you have more than 3 planets in one house out of the 12 houses, then you might have an issue in that area of your life, because it's usually when you see a zodiacal chart or a chart, the person is stretched from the head from Aries, and then the heart's in Leo, and then the feet go and touch the hands. So it's all references in the Bible. Again, it's all allegorical. So yeah, it's great to teach it. It's great to show them. It's great to show them like full moons and what they mean and how they're used inside of all movies. Almost like they'll just flash and show a full moon. And some people aren't for it, and it's not for everybody. But what you'll see is it's a right and exact science. And if you get into some of the sidereal, they have tropical and sidereal. One is based on the stars, one is sort of based on the planets. If you get into the stuff in India, they're even more precise, really precise. They'll say, you'll get married at this age to this type of person. And it's because in every house there's a deacon. And if your planet falls within certain deacons, which is only 10 degrees, 10 degrees, 10 degrees, it has a different degree of meaning, right? And so in Western astrology, they don't really get that in depth, but yeah, it's so precise. I promise you.
And it sounds like you're finding ways to reach them with that too.
Mhm.
Like you said.
Yeah.
So.
Right, that's a different way of knowing thyself. So
There you go.
bring it and tap into who they are.
Yeah.
And deep.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow, yeah.
We may have had another show with just astrology.
Right.
I would love to
Seriously,
do
let's
that.
do some reading.
Yes, I'm
I
here
would
for
love to
it.
do that.
Right. Well, I want we'll put your information, at least your email, out there. But I want to propose to anyone that's watching this and feeling what this brother is saying, that we get him some resources or some sort of help, and also for rites of passage programs, how we can connect, and the importance of having that holistic aspect when it comes to rearing our children within the educational system. and and much respect
Thank
to you
so much.
and everything
So
that you're
much.
Thank you.
doing, and you
Thank
are a
you.
blessed
Thank you.
soul.
I appreciate
You
that.
know, you are a blessed soul. Blessed. We can't thank you enough.
No, thank y'all for having
Right,
me.
we can't thank you enough.
Yes.
So, okay, this concludes this episode of this week's Tuesday Table Talks, and we'll be seeing you next Tuesday.
You want to, are we doing this open mic Friday?
Oh, open mic Friday, yeah. Open mic Friday. Also, Artisan Marketplace is at Marcel, which from 11:30 to 6:30, I believe. David A.N. Jackson, a local poet and entrepreneur, and all around St. Louis advocate, is doing something of a marketplace. So vendors or whatever, look that up on Facebook if those are needed. But come out
That's
for
Thursday.
that.
That one's Thursday.
Yeah, that's Thursday. This Thursday.
Yes.
This Thursday. And open mic this Friday from 7 to 11 p.m. here at the beautiful space of Love and Light. And we'll see you all then. So, yes, beautiful.
Peace.